Released 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween premiered and immediately redefined the horror genre. The film tells the story of Michael Myers, a cold-blooded killer who escapes from a mental hospital after murdering his own sister at the age of 10 and returns to the town of Haddonfield to continue his spree of crimes. Upon its release, Halloween terrified audiences worldwide and grossed up to $70 million, a staggering achievement for an independent film at the time. But few know that the film's initial budget was only $300,000, and director John Carpenter had to compose the soundtrack himself while avoiding the use of blood to save costs. Even more astonishing is that the entire Halloween script was written in just 10 days and filmed in 20. Are you curious about where Michael's mask came from or the origins of the character names? This video will reveal 20 bizarre and thrilling facts about Halloween that you've never known. 20. The iconic opening scene was filmed in a single take. The opening scene of the film is one of the most memorable horror sequences of all time, not only for its tension, but also for its innovative cinematography. It was shot continuously in a single take, using a POV technique to put viewers inside the mind of the killer, Michael Myers. To achieve this effect, the crew used a Steadicam, a relatively new device at the time, allowing smooth tracking shots without cutting. However, to maintain continuity, some shots were executed with special techniques, such as using the mask to partially obscure the camera's view, creating the illusion that everything was filmed in one continuous take. The scene is set on Halloween night, 1963, in Haddonfield, Illinois. The shot begins from Michael Myers' perspective as he wears his mask and carries a knife, entering the house to murder his sister Judith. This sequence not only leaves a lasting impression, but also establishes the film's signature visual style, featuring long takes, minimal cuts, and low lighting to create a tense and eerie atmosphere. It's a testament to John Carpenter's creativity and the crew's innovative spirit in crafting a classic horror film with limited resources. Are you impressed by the opening scene? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 19. The Myers house was actually abandoned during filming. At the time of filming Halloween, the Myers family house was genuinely abandoned. The scenes showing the dilapidated, crumbling home were not staged. The crew stumbled upon it in its natural state. This desolation created an authentic, eerie atmosphere, making the house a horror icon from the very first shots. Interestingly, it wasn't until the final scene of the last production day, the film's opening scene, that the crew painted and decorated the interior, transforming the abandoned building into a seemingly inhabited home. This transformation not only enhanced realism for subsequent scenes, but also highlighted the contrast between the frightening exterior and the normal living space inside, adding to the film's unsettling effect. 18. John Carpenter composed the entire score himself due to budget constraints. When John Carpenter began composing the score for Halloween, 1978, he had no orchestra or budget to hire musicians. With a total film budget of just $300,000, Carpenter wrote the music himself in 3 days, using a simple synthesizer. He stated, "If you can't afford to make them scared, you have to make them hear it." Consequently, he composed a simple yet haunting piano motif in 5/4 time, a technique his father taught him on the bongos in 1961. Carpenter's score became an iconic hallmark of the horror genre. Initially overlooked by critics, audiences became mesmerized by the repetitive melody, which generated suspense and fear. Using synthesizer sounds, Carpenter created a minimalistic yet highly effective musical space, proving that a horror film could be elevated through creativity without a large orchestra. The score has had a lasting influence on the horror genre, inspiring countless composers and filmmakers afterward. 17. Carpenter never wanted Michael Myers' story to continue. John Carpenter never truly wanted Michael Myers' story to continue. In a 2014 interview with Deadline, he revealed that after the first film, he felt there was no more story to tell. He said, "All my ideas were for the first Halloween. There shouldn't have been more." Carpenter did not direct the sequels because he felt there was nothing left to explore with the character. However, Carpenter wrote the screenplay for the first sequel, Halloween 2, and served as executive producer for subsequent installments. He also co-composed the music for later films, including Halloween Kills, 2021, and Halloween Ends, 2022. Despite this, he maintained that Michael Myers' story should have ended with the original film. Regarding Halloween Kills, Carpenter returned as composer. In a conversation with director David Gordon Green, he mentioned working with his son Cody and nephew Dave Davies to update the score for a new generation. He said, "We're having a great time, and the movie is genuinely exciting and fun." Which part of Halloween is your favourite? Share your thoughts in the comments. 16. Carpenter named many characters after acquaintances or famous figures. Do you know that Michael Myers, the silent, cold-blooded killer, was not named randomly? Carpenter drew inspiration from a British film distributor who helped him release his previous film, Assault on Precinct 13 International. Laurie Strode, the girl audiences remember with fear and determination in her eyes, was named after one of Carpenter's former girlfriends, creating a subtle yet vivid connection between real life and the screen. Even Tommy Doyle, the boy Laurie watches over on Halloween night, was inspired by a character from Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. This was Carpenter's clever tribute to a master of horror, linking great cinematic memories to a new, terrifying story. Meanwhile, Sheriff Lee Brackett was named after the famous science fiction author and screenwriter who wrote The Big Sleep, Rio Bravo, and The Empire Strikes Back. These names were not just labels, but pieces of history, tradition, and homage to figures who shaped Carpenter's creative path. 15. The entire film was written in 10 days and shot in 20 days. While most films take months, Halloween took only 10 days to write and 20 days to shoot. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill accomplished the seemingly impossible by writing the entire Halloween script in less than 2 weeks. Just 10 days, yet they created a haunting world where every step on Haddonfield's quiet streets held hidden danger. With a tight $300,000 budget, the crew worked 6 days a week, shooting up to 13 pages of script per day. Actors constantly changed costumes, and houses and cars were redecorated to appear as different locations. Under these time and budget pressures, after 20 days, the team produced a horror masterpiece, where evil exists in silence, in shadows, and in every breath of the audience. A story that continues to chill viewers decades later. Michael Myers was portrayed by 3 actors. Few people know that Michael Myers is not only a legendary horror character, but also a combination of 3 talented actors, each contributing a unique aspect to this emotionless killer. Nick Castle, John Carpenter's close friend since college, played Michael Myers in most of the scenes. With his silent demeanour and slow, deliberate walk, Castle created the iconic The Shape, setting a standard for actors portraying the character in future films. In addition, Tommy Lee Wallace, the film's production designer and editor, substituted for Castle in certain scenes, notably the attack in the closet, one of the film's tensest and most memorable sequences. Finally, Tony Moran took on the role of Michael Myers in the final scene when Laurie Strode removes his mask. With his face revealed, Moran delivered a chilling glimpse of the killer, allowing the audience to sense the character's cruelty and lack of emotion. Do you find this interesting? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 13. The book the teacher talks about is entirely fictional. The scene where Laurie Strode sits in class listening to a teacher discuss a book adds a subtle layer of meaning. The novel, written by the fictional author Samuels, tells the story of Collins, a protagonist who cannot escape fate no matter how hard he tries. When the teacher says, "Fate is something very real and concrete that everyone must face," it acts as a subtle prophecy for the destiny Laurie will confront with Michael Myers. creating a tense psychological link between the script and upcoming action. This is especially relevant as Laurie wanders through Haddonfield, unknowingly stepping into danger. Michael Myers stalks her from every corner, outside windows, near clotheslines, behind a station wagon at the school, and even passing her as she watches over Tommy Doyle. These fleeting appearances are carefully arranged, making him seem like an inevitable fate, a supernatural figure dubbed the Shape. Michael appears stealthily, creeping closer step by step, like a shark in Jaws, generating more suspense than any other horror villain. However, the book the teacher mentions does not exist. It was fabricated to amplify the chilling notion of destiny. 12. Many studios rejected Halloween. Before becoming a horror icon, Halloween was turned down by numerous major studios who failed to see the commercial potential of a low-budget film with a simple script about a psychopathic killer. Producers worried audiences wouldn't be interested and that the project might fail. It wasn't until John Carpenter and Deborah Hill convinced independent producer Irwin Yablans and investor Mustafa Akkad to take a risk that the film finally had a chance to be made. Yablans, impressed by Carpenter's talent after seeing Assault on Precinct 13, proposed a project about a killer stalking babysitters, initially titled The Babysitter Murders. He also suggested setting it on Halloween night to enhance its appeal and renamed the film Halloween, creating a strong visual connection to the holiday. Thanks to Yablans' trust and support, Halloween was released with a unique style, distinct from other horror films of the time. The film was a huge success, grossing $47 million in the US and Canada, plus about $23 million internationally, for a worldwide total of approximately $70 million. Adjusted for inflation, this equates to around $321 million today, making Halloween one of the highest-grossing independent films of all time. 11. Not a drop of blood appears on Michael Myers' costume. During the 1970s splatter film craze, filmmakers often went to great lengths to create gruesome, convincing blood effects using mixtures of corn syrup, red food coloring, cornstarch, and water. However, John Carpenter had to cut costs wherever possible. As a result, after 8 stabbings of Judith, Michael's costume remained completely clean, and this did not affect the film's strict R rating. Another key reason for the absence of blood was the artistic vision of Irwin Yablans, head of Compass International Pictures. He wanted the film to focus entirely on character and well-timed scares rather than excessive gore. Michael Myers was conceived as a supernatural boogeyman of Haddonfield, a mysterious entity who moves faster than any normal human, can shatter car windows, appear and disappear suddenly, and even survive 6 bullets from Dr. Samuel Loomis. This contributed to Michael's terrifying power. Without blood, the audience still felt each knife strike and each suspenseful moment. When Laurie stabs him in the closet at the end, Michael remains unscathed, amplifying his otherworldly menace. 10. Haddonfield and Michael Myers' house are not actually in Illinois. After its release, Halloween cemented the image of Haddonfield, the town where Michael Myers commits his crimes, in the audience's mind. However, Haddonfield in the film is not a real town in Illinois, but a blend of reality and fiction. The fictional Haddonfield was inspired by co-writer Deborah Hill's hometown in New Jersey, while the actual filming took place in California. Moreover, Michael Myers' house, one of the film's most iconic locations, was not in Illinois or New Jersey. It is located at 1000 Mission Street, South Pasadena, California. Originally, the house was at 709 Meridian Avenue, but was moved in the late 1980s for preservation, and is now a cultural landmark. Built in the late 19th century in New England style, the house features a steep roof and Eastlake-style windows. Today, it remains intact and is a must-visit for fans. Additionally, many other filming locations were spread across California. For example, school scenes were shot at Garfield Elementary School in Alhambra, while cemetery scenes were filmed at Pioneer Cemetery in Sierra Madre. Night scenes where Michael stalks his victims were filmed in quiet neighborhoods in South Pasadena and Hollywood, with few palm trees to avoid revealing the California setting. 9. Michael Myers' mask cost $1.98 and came from a Captain Kirk mask. Most people recognize Michael Myers' mask instantly. However, few know that it actually originated from a Captain Kirk mask from Star Trek. Rick Sternbach, a Star Trek designer, confirmed that Myers' mask was a copy of the Captain Kirk mask, previously used in the 1975 film The Devil's Reign. During Halloween's production, with a tight budget, the crew sought inexpensive solutions for costumes and props. Tommy Lee Wallace, the film's production designer, bought a Captain Kirk mask from a Hollywood costume store for only $1.98. He then modified it by painting it white, removing hair, eyebrows, and a moustache, and enlarging the eye holes to create Michael Myers' cold and expressionless appearance. Were you surprised by this fact? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 8. Donald Pleasence took the role for his daughter. Donald Pleasence initially seemed like an unusual choice for the role of Dr. Samuel Loomis in Halloween. A classically trained British actor with a reputation for playing villains in Bond films, he could have easily declined a low-budget horror film. In fact, two horror legends, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, had turned down the role due to the low salary. Pleasence was also hesitant at first, but his motivation came from his daughter, a devoted fan of John Carpenter's earlier film, Assault on Precinct 13. After his daughter pleaded, Pleasence accepted the role for only $25,000. Although he admitted he didn't fully understand the script at first, he trusted Carpenter and approached the role of Dr. Loomis with absolute seriousness. Thanks to his calm yet haunting performance, the character became a villain who is both realistic and supernatural, adding psychological depth to the film. 7. The TV in the film is The Thing. The scene where the kids watch a television program actually features the film The Thing from Another World. This is a famous 1950s science fiction movie directed by Christian Nyby and produced by Howard Hawks. The story revolves around a group of scientists and military personnel in the Arctic who must face a shape-shifting alien creature. John Carpenter, who directed Halloween, was a huge fan of The Thing from Another World. He used it as inspiration for his own film. In 1982, Carpenter directed a remake titled The Thing, starring Kurt Russell. This version stayed closer to John W. Campbell Jr.'s original story, Who Goes There?, and became a classic of sci-fi horror. 6. Carpenter had to shoot additional scenes. In October 1981, NBC planned to air Halloween during the holiday season, but after cuts to nude and some violent scenes to make it suitable for television, the runtime became too short for the 2-hour slot required by the network. To solve this, John Carpenter, co-writer and producer of Halloween 2, oversaw the shooting of new scenes during the production of the sequel. These additional scenes not only extended the runtime but also clarified key details about the characters' relationships. The extra footage included conversations between Dr. Loomis and Laurie, scenes searching Michael Myers' room, and flashbacks of Michael as a child in the mental hospital. One notable scene shows Dr. Loomis discovering the word sister carved on Michael's door, hinting at the familial link between Michael and Laurie. These scenes not only filled the broadcast time, but also deepened the psychological narrative, strengthening the connection between the original film and the sequel. Thanks to these additions, the television version of Halloween was not only complete in length, but richer in story, helping audiences better understand Michael Myers' obsession and the lurking danger surrounding Laurie Strode. 5. The original title of the film was The Babysitter Murders Before Halloween. Became a legendary title, the film's working title was The Babysitter Murders. The initial concept involved a series of killings over several nights, with different girls being attacked in scattered homes. However, producer Irwin Yablans made a crucial decision: to condense the entire story into a single night. Renaming the film and condensing the timeline not only heightened the tension, but also created a haunting atmosphere from the very first glance. The title, Halloween, evokes the holiday, familiar joy, yet simultaneously hints at deep-seated fear, a feeling every child has experienced. Suddenly, the attacks were no longer meaningless killings, but terror with a context. The fear that evil could stalk you on the spookiest night of the year. 4. Halloween was filmed in the Midwest, but not really. Although the film successfully captures the gloomy atmosphere of a Midwestern town, in reality, it was filmed in South Pasadena and Hollywood, California. Because filming took place in spring when the trees were still green, the crew had to creatively recreate the autumn look of Haddonfield. They used fake brown leaves, collecting and reusing them across multiple shots to simulate fall, a cost-effective yet highly effective solution. To increase believability, the crew selected streets in South Pasadena with few palm trees and minimal California climate cues to mimic a Midwestern town. However, in some scenes, viewers can still spot inconsistencies, such as the appearance of palm trees in the background, revealing the difference between the actual and fictional Haddonfield. 3. Most of the main cast of Halloween brought their own costumes. With a tight budget of just $300,000, Halloween faced numerous production challenges. One of the biggest issues was the lack of funds for costumes. As a result, the cast brought their own outfits to save money. Jamie Lee Curtis, playing Laurie Strode, purchased all of her character's clothes from JCPenney for under $100. She shared that she was allocated $200 for wardrobe, but in reality, she spent much less. This contributed to the film's realism. The characters didn't look like typical movie victims. They looked like high school classmates, friends, and babysitters. This authenticity made the horror 10 times scarier. Viewers weren't just watching fictional victims, they were watching relatable, real people being stalked, which amplified the terror significantly. 2. Jamie Lee Curtis was cast thanks to her mother. Jamie Lee Curtis is the daughter of two famous stars, actress Janet Leigh, who left a lasting mark on audiences with her role in Alfred Hitchcock's classic Psycho, and actor Tony Curtis. Growing up in such a family, Jamie Lee Curtis not only inherited acting talent, but also a proud legacy in the film industry. When John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, the producers of Halloween, were looking for someone to play Laurie Strode, they realized that casting Jamie Lee Curtis was not just about her acting ability, but also a clever marketing strategy. Deborah Hill shared that having Janet Leigh's daughter in the cast would create an interesting connection to Psycho, while attracting audience and media attention. She said, "I knew casting Jamie Lee would be a great promotional move for the film because her mother had starred in Psycho. At least I knew she had the genes to scream well." Are you impressed by Jamie Lee Curtis in the film? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 1. Alfred Hitchcock's influence is evident in every frame. When Halloween premiered in 1978, critics largely ignored it. Many called it a cheap, derivative, even childish film. The LA Times harshly remarked that it has no socially significant value, but audiences felt differently. The theaters were packed, filled with rapid breathing and tense hearts. Word of mouth spread like wildfire, turning the modest $300,000 film into a phenomenon with total earnings of $70 million, a record for an independent film at the time. Halloween's success did not happen overnight. It became a grassroots legend, built on pure fear and subtle storytelling. When New York Times critic Vincent Canby finally called it a minor classic, the film cemented its place in horror history. Even the harshest critics had to admit, Michael Myers was not just a killer, he was an icon of ultimate terror. Alfred Hitchcock's influence is evident in every shot. Carpenter admitted that he learned more from Psycho than from any film school. The pacing, slow building tension, tracking shots, and even the absence of gore to heighten suspense. Hitchcock was not only an inspiration, but shaped the entire structure and psychology of the film. Even the casting choice, Jamie Lee Curtis, Janet Leigh's daughter, echoed this horror legend. From initial criticism, Halloween became the gold standard for slasher films, proving that a small budget does not mean weak cinematic power. Through a careful combination of camera techniques, sound design, and character development, John Carpenter turned fear into reality, creating a timeless masterpiece. So there we have it. 20 strangest facts about Halloween, 1978. This is not just a horror movie, it's a phenomenon, an icon of pure fear and limitless creativity. From Michael Myers' Captain Kirk mask to the iconic opening shot filmed in a single take, from recycled fake leaves to music composed entirely by John Carpenter himself, every detail carries an interesting story behind it. Which fact did you find most fascinating among these 20? Are you a fan of Halloween, or have you never seen this classic? Leave a comment to share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss more fascinating stories about classic films and behind-the-scenes secrets. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.